Hello and welcome back. I thought I'd share a book that I've been reading this week, A Silent Voice, which is interesting because it's a manga with a deaf character. I'm not sure that it's a book about being deaf. Volume 1 is the first part of a 7-part manga series and has the first 5 chapters. It was published in 2013 in Japanese and 2015 in English, and had a very successful release as a film. Written by Yoshitoki Oima, whose mother is a sign language interpreter and advised her on some of the aspects of deafness within the story. This is not a story about being deaf. The main character is a hearing boy called Shoya Ishida, who is not a terribly pleasant character. Shoya is our narrator, and he sets up this story as a story about Shoko, who is deaf, and through his eyes we begin to see that this is actually a short story about Shoya himself. This volume focuses on a flashback to when Shoya was in middle school and Shoko Nishimiya joins the school, and Shoko is deaf. But this is the story about how Shoya victimizes Shoko and sees her as an easy victim, and the impact of becoming a bully on him. Initially, we get this image of how Shoya sees Shoko as incompetent and annoying. Through Shoya's eyes, we see the inconvenience of a deaf student who needs to write things down because she doesn't use her voice, and who cannot sing, and who is time consuming to try and allow her to participate. We see the other students who are either excited helpers wanting to help the poor little deaf girl, or lazy and just wanting to have an easy life with no added inconveniences. Shoya compares his victimization of Shoko with his cruelty to animals, which really dehumanizes her. He just wants to push her to see how far it goes. And he just says, yeah, this is what she's there for. She's there to entertain me. And it's part of his trying to avoid boredom. But as his bullying becomes more extreme, you start to see the other students in the class standing up for Shoko and saying, you've gone too far, that's too much, it needs to stop. The next turning point is as the adults get involved, and still Shoya is defending himself. He's saying, yeah, well, you all thought it was funny too. Everyone just thought it was funny. He still isn't seeing Shoko as a real person or thinking about her at all. Shoya shows just a complete lack of self-awareness and scapegoating Shoko. She's the reason he's being shunned. We know that it's actually about him. As the bullying becomes worse, we see Shoya trying to get a response, to get her to fight back. And when that finally happens, you get this absolutely explosive fighting scene. The writing is then taken right down to quietly vanished, and Shoko just disappears and is no longer part of the story. Shoya then has to face the consequences, realising that he has turned everyone against him and that he is now the victim of the bullying. But he still sees it as her fault, Shoko's fault, and blames everyone else. It's everyone else that's being annoying. And I think this rather powerful use of the crossing out the faces to show that he is ignoring them, he's cutting them out, and he becomes increasingly isolated. Shoya then becomes increasingly isolated and despairing, and I think it's really interesting to see how his internalized despair and unhappiness that was focused into the bullying now becomes focused on him. He starts to try and start taking accountability, but still with that expectation that he's not going to be there to face the consequences. He still hasn't made sense of how he can repair things. And then we come back to the chance for redemption, where he is seeing Shoko again for the first time in many years, and we start to think, well, is this going to be a chance for redemption or for payback? And this is where the first volume ends. Remember, this is part 1 of 7 volumes. We're set up with how is Shoko going to react to this? So let's have a look at how deafness is portrayed in here. I think within this book it's quite negative, but that's because we're seeing through Shoya's eyes, and he's seeing someone who is weak and incompetent, focusing in on all the ways that she is not able to function like other students. And I think it's going to be really interesting as we read on, perhaps getting more of her viewpoint. The focus in the first book is very much on what she can't do, and that she has a disability. Even the teachers are quite patronising in their tone, and I want to see her fighting back. Shoko is a very passive victim. She's seen as helpless and always trying to be friendly, signing a new friend and looking so hopeless. I don't know at this point how much of that is because we're seeing it all through Shoya's eyes, and it'll be interesting to start looking in the story at what Shoko remembers and how she sees things, and I'm kind of hoping that's where it goes. There's a real sense that the bullying isn't stopped, it's that Shoko is taken out of the situation, which is why the bullying carries on with Shoya being the victim. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see the impact of that on both Shoya and Shoko in the next volumes. But the adults are also, in lots of ways, very incompetent. They don't recognise what's happening for Shoya. They simply remove Shoko rather than fixing the issues. Most importantly, this story is not about being deaf. It's about how Shoya becomes a bully and how Shoya deals with the aftermath of that. What will be interesting as we move into volume 2 is to see, will meeting Shoko again change Shoya? Is this about Shoya's journey to growth? Or will we find out more about Shoko and find out what's been happening for her and her side of the story? I think there's the 2 ways that the story can be taken. So it'll be really interesting to read on. So I'd be really interested to hear your views. What do you think of the story and the portrayal of deafness, and the importance of a story written about becoming a bully? How have we become so entrenched in Shoya's viewpoint? I'd be really interested to hear your viewpoints, And if you want to hear more, you know what to do. If you subscribe, then you'll get and ring the notifications. You'll see when I post up about the next volume. Hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.